it takes a certain amount of grit, grace, patience, intuition, and compassion for yourself and self-care, all really great qualities of a leader, but also moving forward while you're reaching back. This is what I see a lot with our ladies. It's rare to find a widow who will not sit with another widow and comfort her.
Welcome to Carrie On, the show where we explore reinvention, self-discovery, and empowerment before, during, and after midlife. I'm your host, Carrie Murray. It's time to keep our head above the chaos and carry on.
Widowhood is something we whisper about, something we assume happens to other women later quietly behind closed doors. But here's the truth. Every 2 minutes in this country, a married woman becomes a widow. And when that happens, she doesn't just lose her partner, she often loses her footing in the healthcare system, her financial stability, her political voice, and her visibility in society altogether. Today's conversation isn't just about grief. It's about power. It's about what happens when millions of women disappear from the systems meant to protect them, and what becomes possible when they come back into view. My guest today is a woman who took unimaginable loss and transformed it into a global movement. After losing her husband suddenly at 36 while raising 2 young daughters, she made the promise to herself and to other widows and their families that they will no longer grieve in silence. My guest, Carolyn Moor, founder of the Modern Widows Club, kept that promise. Today, she is redefining widowhood as a women's health issue, a leadership issue, and one of the most overlooked equity issues of our time. This conversation is about grief, but it's also about legacy, leadership, and collective power. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carrie.
I'm excited to have you. I know that you've obviously are a widow and have experienced grief at such a very, very young age. Tell us a little bit about that and where in your grief journey you were like, I got to do something about this. This is unacceptable.
Well, first of all, I mean, being widowed at age 36, suddenly in a car accident that you survived, going home to 2 little children and having an interior design firm with 50 people, immediately my life I realized was never going to look the same. And yet, how are you supposed to comprehend that in a moment's time? So, you know, that was the beginning. And I had no idea what I was doing. The only person I knew who was widowed was my own mom, who had been widowed 2 years before that. And I saw her completely lose health care, financial stability, her home, like everything. And I just thought, this must be what happens to widows. And immediately I was realizing, is that going to happen to me? I'm a top executive. I run my family. I'm a great wife. I run a company. And I had no idea how different a moment in time would be as a hit to my confidence. One day I was a on top of the world confident wife and woman, and the next day I was someone's widow and had no idea what my future was going to look like.
Wow. And as you were managing that, was there one person in particular you felt was advocating for you? Did you feel alone? What was kind of like the thing to get you through it? Was it your mom, who also is now a widow?
No, it wasn't my mom at all. My mom didn't know what to do either for herself or for any other widow with me. It was the most isolating and lonely experience, intensely. I just remember laying in my bed, looking up at the ceiling and saying, tears streaming down my eyes, going, no one understands the intense pain and stress I feel right now in my neighborhood, in my city, in my state, this country, the whole world. That is the weight that widows feel, and I felt that. In looking back now, I think that my story was meant to experience maybe some of the worst case scenarios losing my company, struggling to keep my home, fighting for my daughter's health, then my own health, having a house fire, being homeless, selling my home. All these things that had happened in such a short span of time, you don't really have time to think about, is this a growing experience? Or should I find someone to advocate for me? I wanted to. I constantly looked for them, but they did not exist. There was no such thing as widow mentoring or widow leadership or anything. So I went 10 years and I just stopped looking until my interior design clients started coming to me and said, listen, I have a widow friend or family member and they are at the end of their rope. And that resonated with me. And I thought, how could I say no to another woman who is looking for someone further along than herself? Because that's what I wanted.
Yeah. And how long after working with her, what drove you to start the Modern Widows Club? Because I've looked everywhere. When I saw your intake form, I Googled everything trying to find other resources. But the Modern Widows Club is so comprehensive. It's so layered. And I know you've been there for 20 plus years now. What drove you to build that?
It was really the women themselves. They named it. It was just an inside joke for several years before we became a nonprofit in 2014. And it really became a platform where women were seen and heard and just coming into different homes, what women do. We get together, we help solve each other's common issues and challenges and struggles, right? And that was it. I had a little bit more knowledge. I was a decade or so further than some of the ladies. But then we had ladies starting to show up who had been widowed 3 times.
Wow.
And were 30 years along. And then the world opened up, and I said, "Wow, these women possess such wisdom." Like, she never had an opportunity to tell her story about her 3 love stories, and that's really how it all started, us sharing our love story and what we would want our loved ones, to be proud of us and to carry that on. And what does that look like? And then eventually having our own agency and having our own legacy, kind of melded with that legacy that we had. And not all marriages, want to carry on a legacy of love. But every woman that I know in widowhood does not want to stay in grief. That's what I do know.
What's the cycle of that grief? I know we talked about it yesterday, and you have those 4 kind of like pivotal milestones that a woman who's grieving goes through, or is her widowhood ship.
That's right. That's right. Well, these were things when I'm a big Strength Finders girl, right?
Oh, me too.
So my Strength Finders, one of mine is connectedness. So I learned a long time ago that I see connections where most people don't. I'm also a futurist, and I'm an activator. So I can look into the future and very intuitively put these connections together. So what happened is I started observing thousands of widows, and this became, indirect research. So I realized that something is happening in a 5 to 7 year span of time, but I couldn't prove it until we started really analyzing the women who were coming to our organization. And what we discovered is that the women coming to us needing support were in 4 different distinct phases. They were either in the beginning and grasping for hope, which is very early grief. Then there were women who were coming to us and they needed community and they needed unique knowledge that's specific to widowhood. And those ladies were in heal. And then you had your ladies who maybe were from the past and coming back with a lot of knowledge who were continuing to were in grow. And then the last phase was lead. Some women are coming to us wanting to lead communities, but there was no leadership program, so we developed that. So this assessment tool that we have called our Widow Empowerment Quiz, which was created by a widow who has her doctorate in social work, created this very short 15-minute quiz. When the ladies take it, that's the beginning of their empowerment journey, because they themselves find out where they are. And they also can reset them and take the test maybe a year later and see if they've grown.
Wow. And tell me about the resources, because I know we were talking about how our healthcare system really is not set up at all to consider a widow or support her mental health or the support of her family. And so you saw that calling and infused that in your programming. Where do you see the gaps in just even in our, I know women's health is an issue for all of us, we're constantly being gaslit about it, but especially mental health around grieving. You saw that inequity.
Yes, yes. The grief industry is well documented, well researched, well served, but it's a 1 to 2 year program. And what we're seeing with widows, it takes about 5 to 7 years to rebuild a new identity that they say that they are proud of, that they're owning. Right? That's a difference, right? There's one thing to help with crisis support, which is what grief support is, but what widows need is comprehensive care for a lifespan, okay? Because grief continues and evolves and shifts and changes and as we transform, right? As we transfigure. In Modern Widows Club and the Movement for Widow Care, we actually really look at women as trailblazers, as change makers, as something that is going to become more beautiful than she was even before. That's what transfiguration is, and that's our hope for every woman that finds our resources.
Yeah, and you're doing.
Yes.
You're hoping, but you're actually doing it, so
yes,
bravo.
yes, we are.
We had that crazy statistic, every 2 minutes a woman becomes a widow in the U.S. And remain largely invisible. Why do you think society struggles to see widows?
Because they don't have to. And widows don't insist that they do.
Yeah.
Right? 7 out of 10 married women will become widowed. At age 40, only 1% of the female population is widowed. But fast forward to age 85, 73% of the entire female population is widowed.
Wow.
And the average age is 59. In our organization, it's 52. So the younger widows are being served in our organization, which is really invisible in research. Majority of research on widows is done after the age of 65, and because it's connected to Social Security. Financial advisors talk all the time about this great, wealth transfer that's coming in for women, right? But what they're not talking about is the great poverty transfer that is also going to happen. That's what we're seeing. 50% of the 11 million widows currently in the United States are living in poverty.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And no one's talking about it, right? So, looking at the balance of things, why would not philanthropists and those who have the power to be able to change and create programs specifically for these women who, the majority of them, they are not asked to be in this life stage, right? It is going to happen for a majority of women, but here they are. In the past, women were told to put the pictures away, wear black, don't talk about it, and we've come a long ways from that point in being able to talk about it, but we have not hit a tipping point where people fully understand the knowledge around what are the myths versus the realities of what's happening to women in widowhood.
Wow. And have you seen that in your work cross-culturally? Is this a very American thing, or how do other countries handle their widows?
Yeah. And I've studied them, right? So just to give you some statistics, the U.S. is the 3rd largest country for widows, okay, behind China and India. So India is doing a great job because they're educating their daughters who are coming back and saying, we want our mothers and we want our mother-in-laws to have value and help us with our children because we have careers now. Before, they could just discard those women. This is the reason why we have, Vindravin and communities of widows begging on streets. But what I will tell you is the countries that are doing the best are the Nordic. Like we've studied Denmark. Denmark automatically in their entire health system sees widowhood as mental health and emotional. And so it's folded right in. So the moment you become widowed, you get time off. You get care.
Oh, wow.
The system is set up to receive you. We don't have that in the U.S. We get 3 days of bereavement here. You know,
And you might get a cheap flight.
yeah. I mean, you know, losing a spouse is the #1 most stressful life event according to the Holmes and Ray readjustment scale. They scale every life event with a number. So divorce is 73. Having a baby is 39. When you have a baby, Family Medical Leave Act guarantees that you can't lose your job for 12 weeks. And what do widows get? 3 days.
3 days. Wow. Whew. There's also some other scary statistics I read on your website, and that's around voting.
Oh, yes.
Like, not only are we trying to keep women or widows quiet, and we don't want to see that. Don't look at that over there. But now they're not showing up in the polls and voting.
Right.
That statistic really shocked me.
Yeah.
How many? What was it, like 1.9 million that just stopped voting altogether? It was something. It was some insane statistic.
I actually don't know the actual number. I just know that 3 million widowers, the men, are outvoting the 11 million women who are widowed in this country.
Oh, wow.
And so you have to understand, Rutgers University, the Center for American Women in Politics, researches by status: single, married, divorced, widowed. They want to know how the genders are voting, right? Married, nose to nose, almost the same. Single, divorced, women are outvoting men. Why, between being married and becoming widowed, do women stop voting? If they actually continue to vote, we would be the most powerful constituency base and voting bloc that there is for women, and be leaders in creating change and swinging votes.
And swinging votes. And we'd have a possible different president if they would, ladies, go vote. I love
Widows
that.
go vote.
Widows, go vote, exactly. Yes.
Entrepreneurs, listen up. Are you stuck trying to DIY your website and marketing only to end up frustrated and spinning your wheels? Stacy Beeman of Bee Woman Marketing gets it. She helps passionate business owners like you ditch the overwhelm and go back to your zone of genius. From strategic websites and automated marketing systems to branding, logo design, messaging, and social media strategy, she handles it all. Stacy has supported coaches, consultants, nonprofits, authors, educators, and your girl, Carrie Murray. So stop Googling how to embed a form or set up an email funnel and start growing your business. Visit bewomanmarketing.com and mention Carrie On, and you get 10% off of a strategy session with Stacy.
We hear the phrase, you know, widows, just move on. They're going to move on. You're moving on. I hope you move on, you know, get past this. But what do you wish people actually understood about that?
Well, for someone, it's a very natural thing to ask because it's common, right? But the person asking a question would need to say, what do you expect her to move on to? The majority of our widows don't even know that they have a future.
Yeah.
And so moving through is more appropriate and more understanding and compassionate to them. Moving through might be getting a shower that day, might be answering that call that you've been ignoring, might be actually going out your door and going out in public. That is how fragile, you know, moving through is. And then, you know, moving through becomes, I'm going to return to work, or you know, I'm going to have some hard conversations. So it really is like, what is moving through going to be, you know, for that day?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm sure just getting out of the bed was like, I did it. I brushed my hair.
That's huge.
What kind of leadership do widows uniquely bring because of what they've endured? Where's that? You know, once they've kind of grieved, you were saying 5-7 years, what kind of a leader can we get out of a widow that we're not recognizing?
Well, I always say widows are earning their PhD in uncommon knowledge. It's knowledge. I certainly have, after 25 years, earned my PhD. because I've learned from women what it is that they have. It takes a certain amount of grit, grace, patience, intuition, and compassion for yourself and self-care, all really great qualities of a leader, but also moving forward while you're reaching back. This is what I see a lot with our ladies. It's rare to find a widow who will not sit with another widow and comfort her. That is a very simple form of leadership to, I'm going to do that for 100 ladies in my community. See, it becomes very contagious because you become inspired by these women. And then together you naturally pass on leadership. And you don't do it just for other women. You have the young men and women watching their mothers and their grandmothers and their sisters and their aunts go through this. And so they're learning indirectly, what does leadership look like in widowhood? They may be doing it just personally, but I think everyone who probably knows someone who is widowed has been able to see how that side of leadership is really, it's God-given when we're born, but widowhood gives it an opportunity to be ignited.
Ooh, I like that. And it ignited you.
Yes. Yes.
Very much so, because now you're part of this global movement. You know, it's not just a bunch of widows getting together to have coffee talk. Like you have built something. And I know you appeared on Oprah and you made a promise to her that you were going to build this. And how good did it feel when you maybe had your first 100 members or your first big meeting? Like, when did you know that there's something here? I've got to build this. I have a calling. I thought it was an interior design, but it's actually, I have to build this.
Yes, Oprah, there was a challenge from Oprah backstage to say you should do something with this. And I really had no clue because I was still at year 7, that woman trying to get a shower.
Yeah.
Trying to feed my children. And so I didn't know what it was. It actually took about 5 years. 5 years before I decided, and I also waited for Oprah to go off the air, because because when you're on Oprah, people all want to know your contacts for Oprah.
Yeah,
and so
right.
I didn't want to be known for that. People did recognize me when I was with my interior design clients, and they'd come up, oh, you're that woman who lost her husband on Valentine's Day, and I was just like, oh.
I don't want to be known as this woman who lost her husband on Valentine's Day.
So it was much more subtle than that. It was, I'm willing to have ladies come to my house on the 3rd Thursday of the month. It's just, you know anybody, just send them there. It was really subtle. It was really the women themselves that decided this organization was going to be what it was. It was my decision, however, to end my interior design career and take this on full time. And that decision was very personal. And in 2015, I found myself at the UN for the Global Widows Report, which is the most comprehensive report on women worldwide. And I was there with women who had flown there, used their last dollar to be heard in a room. And it was very harrowing because they actually asked for our solutions, and we each got to go. And some of these ladies were honestly living on the streets, walking into this meeting, not speaking English. And I was humbled.
Yeah.
I was in awe. And I realized right then that life was calling me to something much bigger because I possessed information that they needed in that room. And they asked me what my solutions were, and I said 2 things. I didn't even have to think. 2 things. Places of worship must shoulder their own responsibility in following James 1:27, caring for widows and the fatherless. Number 1. Number 2, philanthropists, specifically widows philanthropists, need to get involved in this cause. They need to understand what Richard Branson says, what is misunderstood will always be underserved. And that is what's happening with widowhood. There is so little research and so attention and awareness to it. And it's a very private thing for most people. But when you put hundreds and thousands and millions of widows together, there are very common things that they're struggling with that need real solutions that are both necessary and audacious.
Whew. Whew, okay, so you build the club.
Yeah.
How many members do you have right now? How big's your community?
And we right now it's sort of, I don't know, 50,000 ladies. It's hard to
50,000.
tell.
That's a lot,
really
Carolyn.
hard to tell. Yeah. But people are watching what we're doing all over the world because they are watching what happens in this country because we're the ones fighting for change, and also igniting research. Going to Washington, D.C. and talking to legislators and finding out they have no clue.
No.
And this is what led me to finding out about the voting statistics. I wanted to understand why no one knew what widows wanted and why they didn't care. Why they didn't care.
Yeah. When, let's say, for example, I have a good friend, she becomes a widow. What's something I can do for her immediately? How can I get her in touch with your organization? Other than sending a link, right? What's something I could immediately do for a woman?
Well, first of all, I would learn about our organization and feel like you trust us to share with her, right? I would see if there's a community in her area. If not, we have virtual communities. Obviously, if she takes the Widow Empowerment Quiz, she can share with you where she is. And if you know a little bit about who we are, the majority of women who come to us are in Heal and Grow. They're usually not coming the first 1 or 2 years, but they usually know about us. They come later.
I see.
But they watch us from afar on social media, which I would expect them to do.
Yeah.
Widows do not trust people anymore. Trust is earned in these communities. Yeah. So I wouldn't let them. We also have a legendary Widows Stories of Legacy book that is sort of a nice way to indirectly let her know that widows before you have built amazing stories in their life. Women like Eleanor Roosevelt, who created UN Women and the Commission on the Status of Women, Betty Ford, Betty White. There's so many women, Katie Couric. There's so many women who have built new lives in ways that they never could have imagined. And we just want them to we believe that they have a future, and we believe that they're going to find purpose and a very meaningful future. And so if you believe that for them, we're the right organization to connect them with.
Love that. And within your community, how do you support your widows? I know you mentioned you have the quiz. The quiz tells me I'm in Grow. What does that mean? Now I go to my Grow group, or how do you organize the women that way?
Well, we have unique e-courses for those particular phases, and really the one thing we learned about women is they don't like to be told where to go and what to do. they're still women. And so we've created a huge menu of things that they can do. Yes, they're not going to want to take the Hope e-course or the Heal e-course. They're maybe going to want to connect with the dating club or relationship club, or maybe the travel club or the book club or our health and wellness club or our financial empowerment club. We've created all these virtual spaces that are from the research that we do with widows who tell us what they want, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can connect based on what your needs are at the time. Some widows come, they leave for a while, and they come back because now they're leaders, or now they want to give back in some capacity and be an ambassador. And that is what didn't exist before. All widows were given is some little, grief support, 1, 2 years, you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Like, I'm super faking it with a mask on right now. Still trying to get that shower.
Yeah.
But, everyone else has moved forward. But she is still being challenged. So today what we're seeing is what I did is I suffered way too long. I suffered twice as long as I should have finding the support that I needed. And what we're seeing today with these programs is COVID widows becoming leaders after 2 years.
Oh, wow.
That is what's extraordinary, is seeing the progression of the ladies being shortened. The suffering shortens and the meaningful purpose ramps up much quicker. Because a formidable woman is a terrible thing to waste. So we do not want women to unnecessarily suffer longer than they have to because they have a great, purposeful life ahead of them.
Yeah, and part of that healing is probably helping the next generation, kind of stopping this cycle of being invisible and like you'll be fine in a year and a half, you know. So you're providing that the hand back to the women coming up and everything. Was that your intention, or did that naturally happen because we're women and we want to, as a collective, we want the group as a whole to rise up together?
It really was, and I believe it probably started. I have a mother who always believed in me, but also being on Oprah and seeing that she believed in me and took special time with me and my daughters afterwards. I think I was always naturally like that, but I was inspired. And what happened was I noticed something unique, which I can't quantify in any way, but I started noticing that the light come back into women's eyes. So when women first come to Modern Widows Club, they'd have no light in their eyes anymore. You can just see it. But then all of a sudden they'll, 6, 9 months later, they'll show up and you'll just go, oh, the light comes back. And that is what I always tell people what we're investing in. How do you quantify something like that? Turning a woman on to the woman she's becoming. Because the person she was in marriage, there are parts of that will come with you, but for the most part, that part has died along with that person. And that is very hard because that's why we call it a rebirth, because you literally are an adult life has now rebirthed itself, and you're an infant. And when you're an infant, you're reliant on other people. But in widowhood, you're just expected to know how to do all that. And it is the ultimate challenge for a woman who is self-capable to admit, I have no idea what is happening. And the research shows that. Women do not know what's happening in their bodies. They don't know what they need. They're choosing unhealthy directions. And we know that happens, and we just want to be an alternative to that. We want to be a healthy pathway and healthy environments, and you feel it when you come to our organization. Most of the women walk in and they're just like, why did I wait so long?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not nervous about talking about my life. The room's not gonna shut down, and walk away from me, because that is what happens.
Yeah. And believe me, and their children who are watching their mothers advocate for themselves and for their health and wellness is such a great model of, and I'm sure your daughters learned that watching you, and now watching what you're doing now and being like, oh, this isn't a taboo topic. We can talk about being a widow. It's not something we need to hide and be like, oh, she's a widow. Like you've said, nope, we're widows, and we're going to talk about it.
Well, these national widows' health and well-being events that we have had 3 generations of widows come and attend that. A grandmother, a mother, and a granddaughter.
Wow.
All widowed.
Wow.
That was the moment I just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
That was the moment that I'm talking about this PhD on uncommon knowledge. I didn't know that existed. I didn't even know that would be needed. And yet now that grandmother's talking to her generation, that mother's talking to her generation, and the grandchildren are talking. So what we found is that a lot of daughters will come to these national events with their moms because they're nervous coming by themselves, and then they learn indirectly. So now the daughters are all getting connected, and we actually even hired one of the daughters to be our organizational administrator. So now we're hiring the next generation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So all of this to lead, you're now putting on a very, very large conference for widowhood. Tell us about that.
Well, this started in 2017. There was this idea, what about a women's conference that's focused on widows and their health and empowering them? Wow, what a novel idea. Why does this not exist? And it's been highly successful. And we have speakers come in and talk about a plethora of topics and vendors. And we have our annual business meeting with all of our stakeholders the day before. And it is just an extraordinary time of seeing, widowhood from a completely different perspective, not only on a personal level, but on just a kind of a global scale, and say, oh my gosh, I'm meeting women from my home state, I'm meeting women from out of the state, out of the country, all here together, and talking about it from a women's health perspective. And women aren't used to that. They're used to only being pigeonholed into grief, which is a mental, behavioral, or emotional topic. But it's holistic. Holistic, comprehensive care is what women want. Someday, my dream is that we will have an actual widows' health and a crisis center where women can call, they can come and get resources, all in the same place. Because what happens, and what happened to me, is I spent years finding resources for myself, for my children, that simply was hard to find. And you're putting a puzzle together at the same time you're deeply grieving and can barely get out of bed.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be wonderful if we had crisis centers that actually had departments or had a division just for widows, because we can learn a lot from widows since they're experiencing the number one most stressful life event. Anything we learn about that research actually will apply to divorce, to other very stressful situations that women are in. So I think it's the future. I think it's emerging. It's a cause on the rise of great significance. And, like I said before, extremely necessary for the future. I do think that the next generation is going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Because my daughters, they're disgusted with how their mother was treated. I'm disgusted with how my mother was treated. On so many levels, everything from our tax code to our lump sum death benefit still being $255 from the 1940s, and it's never changed. And it's just the entire systems that widows step into, and women for the most part, were built by the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And the tax code, why are a qualifying widow only 2 years?
Yeah.
I asked that question, and I had to dig and research, and I finally got my answer. And it's because widowers, remarry between 1 to 3 years. So they made the tax code so that you basically, qualifying widow is the same code as being married. So you're not at a tax advantage, you get remarried. Well, that doesn't work for women.
No.
Women, if they get remarried, on average, 7 to 8 years.
Wow.
Okay? So these are U.S. Census Bureau numbers. When I talk about making those connections, this is what I'm talking about. I want to know why this particular policy is the way it is and how do we change it. And we can change it if we actually get millions more widows voting and having legislators insist on having to look at our needs and helping us make those changes.
Yeah, it is a forgotten population. That
Yes.
is very, very clear. And everything I've read on your website and your YouTube, I've been stalking you. It definitely, you feel invisible.
Weren't you surprised by the data?
I was.
Yeah.
Very much so.
One thing I would love for your listeners to know is on June 23rd is International Widows Day.
Okay.
It is a really important day because that's the day where we really tell the stories of our ladies and what the needs are, and everyone does worldwide because it's a UN ratified since 2015. And so that's the day where we really want people to learn the statistics and learn, what the real challenges are for them. So you'll see a lot of that from us. There's also the day we challenge places of worship to pray for widows or have a special day to recognize them and listen to the widows in their synagogues or congregations.
I love that. Now, as we wrap up, is there any advice you can give to a woman who might be who might be in the thick of it right now? First off, we want to tell you that we see you. But what would you give to the people who are surrounding her? What would you advise them to how they could support her?
Well, I did a TEDx on this topic So I would encourage you to go watch that, because it is about how to support someone who is grieving. And you do need to prepare yourself. You have to make space. There is never a short conversation with a widow, so you need to make the time. And one of the three most powerful words that you can share with a widow is "tell me more," and be ready to hear the answer.
Yeah.
And for you, there's a really small trick that you can do, and it's like taking the palm of your hand, and if you're listening to someone, putting it in the back of your neck and going like this. That action actually causes your parasympathetic system to calm down so that you can be more present. So you think about when you were holding a baby, when you hold a baby and they're safe and they start to fall asleep, that's a natural calming mechanism that anyone can use. Nobody even knows that you're doing it. So
Love
those are
that.
some tips.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you so much. Please tell my audience where we can find you, where we can learn more about all the incredible work you're doing and the conference. We definitely put all of this in the show notes.
Absolutely. Modern Widows Club is both the movement for widow care and Modern Widows Club. It's, services for women and also the advocacy and awareness that they deserve at modernwidowsclub.org. And our National Widows Health and Wellbeing event is going to be June 19th through the 20th in Orlando, Florida, where we started. And hopefully next year we'll be coming to the West Coast.
Love that. Love that. And you don't have to be a widow to attend. You can be a supporter of a widow.
You can. You can actually come with your widowed friend or family member or coworker. We totally understand that it's hard to walk into an actual conference room full of widows when you thought you were the only one.
Yeah. It's empowering, actually.
Yes, it's very empowering.
Yeah, you feel seen, and you're like, you have community, and women in community, as we know, can conquer the world.
Yeah, we're speaking a different language, specific for women who understand that they paid a big price to be there.
Yeah,
right.
They really did. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I could talk to you forever about this. So please, everyone, go follow Carolyn and the Modern Widows Club. Thank you for being my guest, taking the time, being vulnerable, sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I know my audience does. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe to this episode of Carrie On, very special one. And as always, keep your head above the chaos and carry on.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Carrie On. Be sure to find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And as always, like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And don't forget to keep your head above the chaos and carry on.